Hello everybody, this is Dino GTO, and this is going to be my review of the Tiger P Tier 7 German heavy tank that leads to the mouse. Now, I am deliberately talking really quickly because I want to get through this really quick, because I have a bunch of stuff I want to say really quickly, and I feel like this is the best way of doing it, because I don't really want to prematurely speed up the audio, because that doesn't really make much sense, and yeah, I'm just going to talk really quickly, because this is just something I can do. Okay, so, some people say this thing is the worst Tier 7 in the game. That is ridiculous, because there are far better candidates for the worst Tier 7 in the game. Now, I'm just going to start off by saying there's no question as to what the best Tier 7 in the game is. It's T29, no doubt about it. T29 has always been the best Tier 7 in the game. It will never be toppled unless they nerf it significantly. And yeah, that tank is by far the best Tier 7 in the game. This thing in SD was a rival for it, but it is no longer a rival for it because HD nerfed it pretty hard. I will get into that in a second, but first off, I'm just going to run over the vehicles which I believe are worse. I will probably leave a timestamp in the description if you want to skip some of these details. Okay, so, see you in a minute if you want to skip, and you're in for a ride if you continue to watch this. So, yeah. AMX M445. AMX M445 is an awful machine. It has 10 degrees of gun depression at the front, which everybody goes, wow, that's amazing. But then you figure out, oh yeah, I didn't realize. I didn't realize when I first drove this thing. It has 1 degree of gun depression outside of this 180 degree arc. Outside of that arc, this thing has 1 degree of gun depression. If a medium tank at tier 6 gets to your side, you are boned. You are dead. You can do nothing about it. You have 40 side armor, you have 90 front armor, which is both of those are awful. Turret is awful. It's just terrible. And sure, it can accelerate quickly, but top speed is 35, which is awful. This machine is terrible, and you can argue, oh, but it has 9 more pen. You don't notice 9 pen. Nobody notices 9 pen. 9 pen makes no difference at all above tier 6. So, yeah. Okay, so that's about everything I have to say about this. Oh, and by the way, back in the day, it had 1200 health, which meant that tier 7 Russian heavies, like the IS, could 3-shot this thing. I ran into a situation once where I ran into 3 ISs in a platoon. They all shot me, and I died in the first minute of the game, because that's what this thing does. It just dies really quickly, and it takes artillery shots and takes full damage from them because it's just a terrible tank. Now, Black Prince. Black Prince, you can argue, is a decent machine. In my opinion, it is no longer a decent machine because in HD it lost its amazingly strong turret. The turret is no longer as strong as it once was, and this area here was, I think, added, which is only 25mm thick, and I think I have a slight cold coming on, so my voice might be going a bit weird. And anything with 76mm in caliber and above can just go straight through this every single time, no questions asked. So yeah. And it also has this weak point here, where if you shoot the front of the track, you can pen and you can do damage consistently with guns with roughly 160, 170 pen. So yeah, that's a pretty significant weak point, especially considering some machines. If you manage to time it right, you can shoot the front of the track it in place in a position where they cannot shoot you back. So yeah, pretty significant weak point, and in my opinion, one of the things that killed this machine for me. I used to love this machine in SD, but in HD, no. KV3, honestly, it's pretty damn mediocre in every single respect. It has 340 meter view range, which is awful. It has 1400 health, which is okay. That's about the best you can say about it. That's the only real main feature that stands out about this vehicle. 18 degrees tank traverse and 23 degrees turret traverse. So this thing is the most unmaneuverable tank at tier 7, other than I think the Oni. Oni is the only one I think is worse in terms of maneuverability, but at least the Oni has an excuse. It is gigantic. The Oni, I think, is the tallest tank in World of Tanks. So yeah, this thing uses the same gun as the IS, and I don't really see why anyone would choose this over the IS. IS gets exactly the same side armor, is faster, and is overall more mobile, more maneuverable, and I think has the same view range. And only way it's worse is it has 170 less health. So yeah, IS pretty damn terrible machine in my opinion. This thing here has just overall no area where it stands out above the IS. So yeah, just awful machine. Has nothing special about it. Now, Oni is next. Oni, really tall machine, 25km/h top speed. It's actually surprisingly faster than the Black Prince. But here's the main flaw of this vehicle. It has 70 side armor. 70. 70 is abysmal for a heavy tank. it cannot side scrape with 70 side armor, and to make it worse, it's not 70 all over the side, it's only 70 on this part of the side. So you have this area here, which is only 42 millimeters, which medium tanks and light tanks can take advantage of. And I have had situations versus these things in the past where I have been in like something like a Cromwell, something like what the hell was the other tank? The T-3045. I've gotten to their side and they can't shoot me. I just drive back and forth at their side and they can't hit me, and it's just hilarious because I just sit in farm damage. Now, these are one of the vehicles I do look at as XP and damage pinatas. These things are awful machines. I hate these machines. I drove this thing in about 15 games and just went, nope, hate it. Now, next one, Stir Meal. Stir Meal is, in my opinion, one of the worst tier 7s in the game. It has the best. It has, I think, the best gun at tier 7, but it is the most awful chassis I have ever seen. Now, if the ISU's chassis at tier 8 was as bad as this, then the BL10 wouldn't be as unbalanced as it is. But yeah, this thing relies completely on gun depression. It is slower than holy hell, and it has thickest armor on this vehicle is 65 millimeters, and the rest of it is all abysmal. And consider it comes from a machine that already has no armor at tier 5. That just gives you an idea of just how terrible the armor is on this thing. So yeah, on to the Challenger. Challenger, I don't even need to explain why it's an awful machine. It gets 150 damage a shot. There are tier 5 medium tanks that can do 150 damage a shot. Just going to show you that I'm not just talking out my ass. The STRV M42 at tier 5 can do 150 damage a shot with its 75mm gun. So yeah, this thing, it has no alpha, and considering most of the time in tank destroyers you get one shot off and then that's it. You don't really get the opportunity to sit and just use your rate of fire. That's why I figured out the playstyle of the Swedish tier 6 after I realised the rate of fire was awful. I just try to put myself in situations where I only would get one shot off, because that's the basically the thing you need to do. You get the one shot off, you fall back, then you move into another position, then get another shot off, shit like that. This thing here needs to put itself in positions where it can get many shots off, and without that, it will do like 700 damage in a game, and that is awful. This machine is huge, it's got no armor, and it's just overall a terrible tank with no turret traverse. I mean, look at that. Are you shitting me? Okay, 87. 87, some people argue it's a good machine. I argue against that because it is slow, it has a very narrow gun traverse. Sure, it has 8 degrees of gun depression, but it's only for that little tiny area here. Like this, okay, it can go 7 degrees to the right and 7 degrees to the left. That is pretty damn horrific. It has 200 front armor, but it also has a pretty significant weak point here, which is just a big giant screw you to the armor. It also has the top hat that the UK tank destroyers are infamous for. So yeah. Now, it also has, I think, 100 side armor. I think it's 100 side armor. Yeah, 100 side armor. Some people think you can side scrape with this thing, which I always think is hilarious when I see it, because I do see people do it. They'll try and side scrape, and then I will just drive around them and just proceed to kill them because it's easy. They have no gun traverse, they have no tank traverse, and it's just so easy to kill them. It's unbelievable. Let's see, MX SE46. This thing is absolutely massive. I've quadrupled the size of the tier 7 Swedish tank destroyer. But this thing here is expected to play the same way as the Swedish tank destroyer. It's got the same caliber gun, I think about the same pen, and I think actually a worse aim time. It's absolutely gigantic, as I said. It's got a relatively good top speed, but it doesn't really do that top speed very often. And overall, in my opinion, this thing is pretty damn awful because it's huge and it's expected to be a stealthy tank destroyer. And you might think, oh yeah, but it has front armor. No, it doesn't. Look at this. Like, I can't think of any tier 7s that are really going to reliably bounce off this thing. I mean, look at it. And besides, if you get the side armor, everything bends side armor. No doubt about it. So, Type 5 Chi-Ri is gigantic, as I've said with a couple of these machines. And it has literally no armor. The thickest armor on this vehicle is 70 millimeters, 75 millimeters. That's it. Awful. And this thing, I complained about the MX M445 not being able to side scrape versus 122mm guns and shit like that. This thing can't side scrape versus anything bigger than 106 millimeters. So yeah, pretty damn terrible machine. And some people say, oh, it's good because of the autoloader. No, it's not. It's a terrible machine. Overall, it's just an awful machine. It's gigantic, and artillery always focus this thing because they know it is free damage. Now, MX-1375 has 144 pen when every other tier 7 vehicle that's a light tank gets at least 170 pen. Like even the WZ-131, I think gets 175 pen gun as an option. I think almost all of them get 170 pen guns. So yeah, this thing gets 144, and that's the best gun it can get. And it's also pretty slow for a light tank, and it's just overall not really that good of a machine. Same kind of story with 1357, except it's got a worse part of weight ratio. It's got slightly better tank traverse, and it's got an interesting autoloader, but overall not that great of a machine in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much covering all the vehicles which I think are awful tanks at tier 7, and why they, in my opinion, deserve the title of worst tier 7 in the game over the Tiger P. So yeah, that's that done. Now, on the Tiger P itself. This thing here has 1700 DPM, 240 alpha per shot, 203 pen, and overall pretty damn consistent, pretty damn nice gun. Now, this is the version of it with the equipment I would recommend to use, although I did not use vents the entire time because I wanted to use bits that I could take off and use on other tanks. So binoculars and toolbox are pretty good options. This one here for close range combat, this one here for more versatility in games where you're a bottom tier. And because you have a 203 pen gun, 203 pen guns do scale up relatively well. And I would always recommend the gun lane drive and the rammer because they both just improve the usability of the gun. Now, accuracy, pretty damn nice. Not as good as the Tiger 1 as far as I remember, but the Tiger 1 is also infamous for having literally no armor whatsoever. Like if you try to side scrape with this armor here, oh yeah, this is an auto bounce at that angle, over angle just a little bit, and suddenly everything can pass. So yeah, and it also has this cheek here, which everybody shoots at if they can see it. And yeah, overall, pretty just terrible armor. And some people say it can reverse side scrape. I would argue to disagree with that because if you try to angle it around the corner, it's exactly the same issue. Like this thing just cannot reverse side scrape, and it always has this. It always has a cheek to shoot, no matter what you do with this vehicle. It's kind of bad armor. It's just awful armor wise. And yeah, the accuracy and aiming time and stuff like that is better than the Tiger P, if I remember right. Let's just do this quickly. So yeah, dispersion I think actually might be the same. Let's just look for the one. There it is. Oops. I have a couple different versions of Tiger P open because it's easier to set them up beforehand than go into them rather than setting them up in the video because that can take a couple of minutes because it's just so awkward to do sometimes. But yeah, see, Tiger 1 has a better aiming time, better reload, and better overall rate of fire. Now, Tiger 1 gets an extra 2 shots a minute. The Tiger 1 has such a ridiculous rate of fire and wide, and it's also more mobile because it has no armor at all. The only area of the tank that has armor is the turret, and even the turret doesn't have armor. Now, this thing has 1500 health and such a ridiculous rate of fire because it dies so quickly in games. It like if people see a Tiger 1, they shoot the Tiger 1 because even tier 5s can pen this thing frontally. So yeah, this thing has that rate of fire, this amount of health, because it dies so quickly if people shoot it. This thing does best at being basically second line support. Second line, just high DPM, high rate of fire support style of vehicle. The Tiger P actually has a bit more versatility. It can actually go close range if it needs to. Tiger 1 can only go close range at the very, very end of the game. Otherwise, it's just going to get absolutely obliterated. So, yeah. And also, this thing here cannot tank artillery shells for the life of it. 100mm frontal armor, 100mm turret armor. This thing takes artillery shells and takes pretty much full damage from all of them. And don't forget, tier 7 is a tier where shit like the M12 gets like 203mm guns. So, yeah. Let's see. This thing here, the Tiger P is less mobile than the Tiger 1. This thing here also has I think, exactly the same view range as the Tiger 1, so yep, it's about as versatile as the Tiger 1 in that regard. You could argue that the Tiger 1's extra mobility makes it a much more versatile machine. I would argue that the extra armor that the Tiger P gets, especially on the whole, improves how well it can do in games a lot. Because, let's see, it does have worse gun depression. It has 1 degree worse gun depression, but honestly, I don't really notice the bad gun depression because I play tanks with bad gun depression all the time. One of my favorite tanks is T-34-2. So yeah, but yeah, the accuracy still holds up at higher in games where you're bottom tier. So that's pretty nice. It has okay aiming time. Yes, look. I'm just gonna say this here right now. I wouldn't be opposed to this thing getting a couple buffs, but I don't think it's the worst tier 7 in the game. I think it's ridiculous to say that. And honestly, that's why I reckon it probably won't get a buff, because it is not the worst tier 7 in the game. I wouldn't be opposed to it. If you've got a buff, just like if you've got a Luva level buff, then this thing would probably be the best tier 7 in the game after it. But yeah, let's see. Okay, armor wise, is 200mm strips here and here. Auto ricochet plate here, and 80mm lower plate. Lower plate is the main weakness of this vehicle. It also has a pretty weak turret. Back in the day, this thing used to have 100mm of this 100mm strip here. This used to be the entirety of the area behind the gun mantlet, and the gun mantlet itself, I think, was all 100mm or 120mm or some shit like that. So this front turret used to be effective 200mm everywhere where the mantlet is. It only had a 100mm strip here and a 100mm strip here, both of them very, very small targets, and it's very, very easy to miss this shot here and hit the 200mm effective frontal armor, which would just bounce the shot. Now, it has always had this weak point here. This weak point here is pretty significant. The Tiger 1 does not have this weak point. The Tiger 1 has a much more round, much more, much better shaped weak point because it's rounded and curved, whereas this one here is just a round thing that's not curved at all. So, yeah. It can't. This thing won't bounce shots. It'll only bounce shots maybe once in a blue moon. Like this thing, it's very, very rare for it to actually bounce a shot. So be aware of that. If you can cover this, you want to. Now, one of the main advantages of this vehicle is the fact that it's long. Now, you may be wondering what I mean by this. This is what I mean. This thing can actually reverse side scrape surprisingly well. It has 80mm of side armor. 80mm of side armor is, I think, the area where side scraping becomes really effective. So yeah. Typically, whenever I'm side scraping this vehicle, I would side scrape at the auto bounce angle this thing needs to bounce shots. Then after the enemies bounce their shots off the side. Oh yeah, and this is another big advantage of the vehicle I forgot to mention. The tracks cover the entirety of the area which is 60mm, which is a pretty significant advantage over the Tiger 1. Tiger 1, if you try to reverse side scrape in Tiger 1 as an example, you still have this big area here to shoot at. Let's see, am I looking at these about the same angle? Let's see, hang on. I'm just going to make sure I'm being fair. I would say that's roughly the same kind of angle. In fact, I would actually say I'm probably looking at the Tiger. Let's see, let's do this. But yeah, this thing here always has an area which you can hit, which is pretty weak. And if you're looking to angle it in such a way that you can't see this cheek here, you need to angle the turret about this much here. And the 60 side armor and the 80 side armor are both really, really weak at this kind of angle, and everything can bend them. Now, this thing has 80 side armor, but because it's such a long vehicle, it can actually use its side armor relatively effectively. And considering you're probably going to have this entire area covered, this badly angled area here, especially for reverse side scraping, won't ever be showed. It's kind of like the IS4. IS4 has kind of the same kind of area, which is weak at the back. I think, if I remember correctly, the IS4 does have that kind of weak point. I'll just look, just out of curiosity. Or it might be the IS7 I'm thinking of. I think it might be the IS7 I'm thinking of. IS7 is also a very long vehicle. Yeah, the IS7 is the one I'm thinking of. It has like a very weak area here, which is relatively easy to pan for tier. Well, actually, it mightn't be because it's so well sloped on the IS7. But most vehicles are taller than the IS7, so IS4, does it have the same kind of weak area? Well, the IS4 kind of does have like the cheek armor, but the IS4 has such thick that side armor that doesn't matter. So yeah. Let's see, Tiger P, yes, it can reverse side scrape, but there's also another thing you can do in this vehicle which works surprisingly well. Let's just see, here it is. Here's the version I'm looking for. Now, this thing here can do a thing, I'm not actually sure if it has a name or not. I'm going to call it kind of tanking with your front armor. This is a tactic you can use in your super Pershing, you can use in your Japanese heavies, things like that. You poke the front around the corner at a steep angle, because your front armor is so thick armor value wise. Like if you do it like this, like typically my tactic is I will accelerate full speed towards the corner, knowing there's enemies around the corner. I will angle it at such an angle that I'm pretty confident it will bounce, and I will poke around the corner, and then like I said, this is me poking around the corner, like I'm driving up to the corner. I poke out and then I'll fall back immediately. After that, they're baiting their shots out, then I can get a shot out in return, and then I'll just repeat the process. Or if I know the pen of the gun that I'm facing, I will use this tactic here, where I do this, and I will typically try to find an area where there's like a little mound or something that I can cover the lower plate with. So, oops, that's the Audacity. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. But I will typically find an area where I can do this kind of thing here. Let's see. I'm looking at the gun. Keep opening Audacity instead of Notepad. Let's see. And I will do this sort of thing here. Just poke just the gun out, and just cover the cupola on top, while only showing the thickest part of the armor. And this is our ricochet at this angle. This is not a ricochet, or an auto bounce basically. And the turret is the only real weak point you can really see. And even most of the turret is about 160 to 200 millimeters effective armor. And the lower plate is the only real weakness, but there are areas on the maps for the most part where you can cover most of the lower plate while doing this kind of thing here. So yeah, unfortunately the replay I'm going to use to show the power of this vehicle isn't going to show that off. That's why I made sure to show it off in Tank Inspector, because unfortunately the maps I was getting whenever I was playing this vehicle, I kept getting Prokhorovka. And Prokhorovka, if you have any experience in heavy tanks, you're worthless on Prokhorovka if you're in a heavy tank. You just can't do shit. Unless you're bottom tier, you can't do shit. Because at least when you're bottom tier, you can just say, I can go to the forest and just snipe. If you're top tier, you need to be at least somewhat aggressive, and you need to make sure you have an impact on the game. Now, that is one of the maps where this thing is useless, but that's, for the most part, I think for most heavies, other than the Americans, because the Americans don't care. Now, I think that's the majority of things I need to say about this vehicle covered. That I need to say in the armor review. It does have a weak point here, but Tanks GG doesn't reckon as a weak point, but I think is actually a weak point for the most part in the game. If you come over a crest and people shoot up here, they can go straight through the tracks and straight into this 25mm area here. Although Tanks GG is reckoned that will just be absorbed by the tracks, so I'm not 100% sure if that will work. So yeah, that's most of the points of the vehicle covered, and I am going to leave a timestamp to skip that rant about all the vehicles that are worse than this thing. And also, I should just point out that technique I just showed you, where I showed like a wall and covering the front of the vehicle, or the covering like the side of the vehicle while tanking with your thick front armor, it works surprisingly well from what I've seen in the Japanese heavy tanks, and it also works well in the VKB. Let's see, what is the VKB? Oops, didn't mean to do that. VKB, where are you? There you are. Here it is. VKB model. Here's what I do in the VKB. I will do that. I will poke my front armor around the corner, let everything bounce off of it, because everything bounces off the VKB, because it's like 300 effective. And I will then, I will poke around the corner, I will take my shot, and then I'll fall back and do this. Just repeat the process. So it works really well for me in the VKB. And I can see it working very well in the Japanese heavies as well, because if I do this with the Japanese Type 4 heavy, I can do this, I can cover this, and you might be thinking, oh yeah, but you can just go straight through the track. According to this, there's pretty much no area which is paintable by normal guns on this vehicle whenever you do this. Like, the only area that's, well, even this is ridiculously strong, so not even sure there's any areas that you can reliably pan when you're at this kind of angle and you're covering your cheek weak point. So, yeah. This vehicle here can also make use of this tactic. There's a couple of other vehicles that can use this tactic really well as well. But, yeah, those are just a couple of examples of things that can do this and get away with it really, really well, in my opinion. So, on to the replay, I think, because I think I have covered pretty much everything on the Tiger B. Let's see, let's look at the stats page again. These are the base stats, by the way. Let's see, is there anything I forgot about? Still has a nice slab of health. I think that's the third highest at tier 7. I was just behind the Oni and the Tiger 1, so yeah. I believe that's everything. So yeah, let's go on to the replay. And we're back with the gameplay to show off this vehicle. This is really good matchmaking. I had a couple of aces in tier 8 and I think one in a tier 9 game. Tier 9 game I can't find for the life of me. But the tier 8 one I think I will probably show off either in this video or maybe in a separate video. Let's see, I'm not really sure why the chat is like doing that. It's kind of annoying. Why is it doing that? Is it gonna stop? Okay, there, stop. Some wee bugs with the replays you find from time to time, which is when you're like rewinding. Like, I had to rewind there because I was just rambling and not really focusing on what the heck I was trying to say. Now, first of all, let's try and deal with this T-43 because I know for a fact if I don't kill him now, he will probably go behind me and it will be annoying. That guy somehow misses with his first shot. You can see here that I bait the shot using my front armor. And you might be saying, oh yeah, but that only works versus idiots. Have you played World of Tanks? Saying it only works versus idiots. Yeah. I hate to tell you, but probably about 70% of the player base don't really know what they're doing and don't really care. In fact, I would say most of them probably just don't care enough to really get extremely good at the game. For a while I cared enough to try and get really good at the game. I had, what do you call that, like cyan color, like shows that you're really, really good but not overpowered good. Not Unicum level. I was that level for a while when I was really, really trying to like focus on my stats. I refused to play shit like the T67. So yeah. First of all, go focus the Oni. He's not using the 150mm gun, which I expected him to use. I am taking a lot of damage here. But, you know, the thing you need to keep in mind is that any shot you bounce in this vehicle is a shot you probably wouldn't have bounced in the Tiger 1. Because the Tiger 1 can't bounce anything. The Tiger 1 has a tiny ricochet plate in like the center of the vehicle, but that's about it. And that guy just missed. I'm going to try and keep him in place. The Black Prince kills the T-37. Now, I'm just going to focus this guy down, try and kill him as quickly as possible because he's an Oni and yep, there's another shot that he didn't pin me with. Going to keep him in place. I'm pretty confident when I reload him. He has a 330 alpha gun. And yeah, he doesn't out-reload me. Here I'm going to try and save the M6's life. And I'm going to try and ram this guy and try and do some damage to him. Now, that is one thing I forgot to mention about this vehicle. If you manage to get yourself on top of a slope and you're able to ram something, this thing will do a shit ton of damage because this thing is 200mm frontal armor and it's a 60-ton tank. This thing will do a lot of damage when it rams something. It is kind of incredible the amount of damage it can do when it rams. I'm already up to 3000 damage. The STRV kills the T-3045. I'm on roughly 500 health and here I'm right into the M6 because I wasn't quite fast enough to save his life. Now, here's where I would say, you might be saying, oh yeah, but Tiger 1 would be able to save his life. But I would argue no, because first of all, I wouldn't have been in this position in the Tiger 1, because Tiger 1, I would be up towards the cap. I'm telling you that right now. I know for a fact that going over there in Tiger 1 is the best option. I play a bunch of games in the Tiger 1. That is the best place to go in the Tiger 1 in my opinion. Tiger P can actually have a bit of versatility and can go to these kind of areas, which the Tiger 1, in my opinion, can't. Now, currently fighting the KV2, being very cautious with my shots because he is a KV2, and I know what KV2s are like. KV2 and their Stalin guided rounds. So yeah, it's always better to be a bit cautious when it comes to the KV2. So I'm on 3200 damage. I only had 360 blocked. But bear in mind, that is 360 damage I would have taken, and also that does not include damage I took with my tracks. That is one thing that is something that the damage block counter does not take into account. I mainly chose this game because it really well it's Stock T67. You won't see those too often. Usually they're all driven by Stat Wars. So that kind of caught me off guard when I saw that in the game. I was like, huh, weird. Let's see, E25 is up to support me. I do take a shot from the KV2. I only took 370 damage from that. That was a 152mm derp gun. How much damage would I have taken if I was in a Tiger 1? A bunch of shot from the E25. And bear in mind, that's another shot I would have taken and taken damage from. If I had gone here in the Tiger 1, bear in mind, I probably would have taken all the damage I got, all the damage I bounced from the Black Prince and absorbed my track from the Oni, I would have taken in the Tiger 1. Also, the E25 would not have bounced 90% of the time on the Tiger 1 unless you got extremely unlucky. And then there's the KV2 shot. The KV2 shot, I probably would have taken 500 to 600 damage from the KV2 with the HE round. So yeah. This guy could kill me. I'm not really fearing it because he is a tier 5. He probably doesn't have 100% crew. He doesn't really have a chance versus me. And STRV rams him to death. So, in that game, 4,224 damage. And kind of shows off the ability of this vehicle to mitigate damage with its frontal armor. He hit the 200. I actually hit the 60mm. It's actually difficult to tell with the gun marks. I think he probably hit the 200mm area, but it just kind of spreads the penetration, or not the penetration, the explosion across that. Bizarrely, I don't really know. Sometimes the game does that. It just kind of like fucks up in terms of the displaying of the shots, like where they penetrated. So yeah, overall that was a pretty damn decent game, and I'm going to show you the results screen, or the results screens here now. Okay, so here are the results: Ace Tanker, Steel Wall, and High Caliber. So looks pretty good metal wise. Ace Tanker, and I did a lot of damage. I was really happy with the damage I managed to deal in this game. Now, 1400 XP base. I don't really go by XP with modifiers on them, like premium count and shit like that. So 4200 damage, 44,000 creds made, but that's only because of premium count. And unfortunately, it like dulls the color of the non-premium thing, so I can barely read it. I think this is 22k. So yeah, 645 blocked. It wasn't that impressive in terms of damage blocked. I'll admit that completely. But what this shows is, what this review showed is that this is by no means the worst tier 7 in the game. No way in hell is this the worst tier 7 in the game. There are far worse machines to be driving. There are machines that are far more, what's the word I'm searching for? Far more dull to drive and far more, what do you call it? Far more situational. This machine at least has the ability to do 35 kilometers an hour. It won't do it consistently, but it can at least do it. If you're going down a hill and you're going to ram something, at 35 kilometer an hour top speed, combined with the 60-ton weight roughly, and the 200mm frontal armor, this thing can really do some serious damage. And something I should actually mention is I actually got my second gun mark relatively easily in this machine, so I only played this thing like about 30 or 40 games over the last couple of weeks. I was actually playing it before Quickie Baby did his video on it, and then I said in a comment under his video that Tiger P isn't by no means a bad tank, and honestly I don't believe it's a bad tank. I don't believe it's the bad tank. It's not the best tank, I will admit that, but just because it's not the best tank does not mean it's a bad tank. Like that's like saying the T62 is bad because the Object 140 is better. That's all personal preference. Like I know, like I've seen some people who said the T62 is the best tier 10 medium. I've seen other people who said the Object 140 is the best tier 10 medium. I've seen other people who say the E50M is the best tier 10 medium because it's versatile and has the most armor on the whole. So yeah, it's all down to personal preference. Like I think honestly, this thing is probably middle ground in terms of tier 7 overall, and middle ground in terms of tier 7 heavies. Back in the day, back with the pre-HD model, this thing I would have rated in the top 3. It is not as powerful as it once was. I do have to make that clear. This thing, back in its prime, was unbelievably powerful. This thing here could slaughter enemy teams on its own. And I had quite a few games. Like I think my damage record for a long time was in this machine, where I did like I think like this was back in the time where I would only grind up to I would try to grind up to a certain tier in every single nation, in every single line even. Like my goal I think was to grind tier 6 in every line in the game other than artillery because I don't give a shit about artillery. But that's the way I played for a long time, and that's the reason why I didn't have my first tier 9 or tier 10 until I was past like 11,000 games played. And this was one of the vehicles I played during my first 2 or 3 thousand battles, and I was playing it with like a 12 FPS laptop, so my stats probably aren't the best. I haven't actually looked at them, so yeah. This was one of those vehicles that I played way back when I started, and I actually liked this thing far more than the Tiger 1, and I initially sold the Tiger 1 and kept this. I did end up selling this at one point because the E100 came on sale for like 30% off in the top of the tree event. So I did sell this at one point, and I rebought it next time tier 7s were on 30% sale. So yeah, overall I think this is a decent machine. It's not the best, as I've said before, it is not the best machine. It is not the best tier 7 machine. But is it the worst? Fuck no. There are way, way, way worse tier 7s to be driving, so yeah. I think that concludes the video. I don't really think there's anything else I have to say. If there is anything else I have to say, I'll probably add it on at the end, so yeah. Last thing I want to say, actually, thinking about it doesn't matter what I say to some people. Some people are going to say that they hate this machine and they think it's the worst machine in the game anyway. That's fine, everybody has their own opinion. Just that my fly opinion is that this is not the worst tier 7 in the game. I can't bring myself to say it's the worst tier 7 in the game because I don't think it is. I think that's unfair to say, and I think it's kind of ridiculous to say, honestly, because this machine at least has some advantages, whereas some of them just don't. So yeah. So if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing and leave a rating of some sort, like, dislike, whatever. And well, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.